Overcoming adversity. How do you overcome adversity? That's the topic of today's Bold and Blunt, and I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. And before I get into that, I want to quickly mention if you like Bold and Blunt, you can get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, the online platform for your faith-based podcasts, through washingtontimes.com, where you can also subscribe to my 3 times a week newsletter containing the commentaries I write at the Washington Times, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, delivered right to your email box, along with my Bold and Blunt podcast, or you can get Bold and Blunt wherever podcasts are offered. How do you overcome adversity in your life? How do you deal with challenges and problems and struggles? Do you cry? Do you whine about it? Do you moan and you know what about it? Do you blame God? Do you say, poor me, why did God put this burden on my shoulders? Or do you fight back? Do you fight back, overcome, and then move on with your achievement? Do you grow your self-esteem through overcoming adversity? Or do you listen to today's teachers in public school systems that say, oh, poor Johnny, poor Janie, their self-esteem is low, so we have to lower standards in order that they may achieve to the same level as the rest in our class? Well, guess what? I want to read you this headline. Ex-Fox News reporter Rick Leventhal, lucky to be alive after horrifying car crash. That is a headline dated January 11th. Yes, that is January 11th of this year. And if you recall Rick Leventhal, he was a near permanent face on Fox News for decades. You probably saw his reports from war zones, from crises areas, from breaking news areas, and of course, during the Twin Towers disaster, the terror attacks on America's soil. But whether you know who Rick Leventhal is or not, whether you can picture his face in your mind right now or not, just listen to his story. Rick Leventhal, I am reading from this January piece from TVinsider.com. Rick Leventhal, the former Fox News reporter and husband of Real Housewives of Orange County alum Kelly Dodd, has provided fans with an update after being hospitalized due to a horrific car crash. Here's the quote from Leventhal. So lucky to be alive and grateful for the well wishes and care I'm getting. He posted that on Instagram on January 10th. He also revealed in this post that he suffered 4 broken ribs and a fracture on the top of his right foot. Continuing to read from this TV Insider report. Other than that, Leventhal said during this online video message from his hospital bed, I'm fine. There's nothing internal they can find, but they want to keep me in the hospital for a little bit, but it could have been so much worse. The news reporter went on to explain what happened, TV Insider wrote, revealing he was driving on the I-10 just outside of Palm Beach, California, when he, quote, hit what felt like a patch of ice, end quote. Again, from Leventhal, I lost control, slammed into the wall hard, started spinning around across lanes of traffic, and slammed right into the back of a tractor trailer, ripped the front end of the Mercedes off, and smashed a windshield, both airbags deployed. I think I might have broken my ribs from the airbags. And then his wife, Kelly Dodd, weighs in. They married in 2020. She took to her own Instagram page, and she shared this. There will be no smash tomorrow on at YouTube, The Rick and Kelly Show. That's the show that she does with her husband, Rick. My husband got in a horrible car accident. He is in the ER. Please say prayers for at Rick Leventhal. TV Insider wraps the story this way. Leventhal then commented on his wife's post, writing, honestly, I'm lucky to be alive. Scariest moments of my life. This makes everything even more meaningful. And I just want to repeat that last sentence. This makes everything even more meaningful, Rick Leventhal said. That right there is a key to overcoming adversity. It's the idea that you recognize life is precious, that life is a gift, life is a blessing, and you live every moment that you can to the fullest that you can. And when things don't go your way, you don't cry and moan about it. You keep on. You continue on. You maintain perspective on what's important in your life. And look, we're all human, right? We all suffer burdens in life. We all suffer struggles, adversity, some more than others, right? Some just feel as if maybe they lead cursed lives, and they look around and they say, geez, why are things so hard for me, where other people, they just seem to coast along? Well, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, but it's true. Some people do seem to have a harder time in life than others. And for whatever the reasons, though, it's important to understand that your true personality comes out not when times are great, not when things are all going your way, but when struggles enter your life, adversity enters your life, and it just seems like unfair burdens are being placed on your shoulders. That's when your true personality comes out. That's when the true testing comes forward, and what's in your heart is actually put on show for all the world to see. So I want to go back to this piece, TV Insider, Rick Leventhal, in a hospital room, from a massive car accident that he describes as one of the scariest moments of his life, lucky to be alive. That was posted, remember, January 11th, just a few days ago. And now here he is, none other than Rick Leventhal, on Bold and Blunt to discuss his new book, Chasing Catastrophe, My 35 Years Covering Wars, Hurricanes, Terror Attacks, and Other Breaking News. But more importantly, bouncing back from adversity to tell others, to share his stories of inspiration, which his new book also includes, on how you, in your own life, can do the same. What a great example. What a great inspiration in these dark times facing America. Rick, thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Cheryl. Thank you.
Chasing Catastrophe, the title of your new book, My 35 Years Covering Wars, Hurricanes, Terror Attacks, and Other Breaking News. That is a very dramatic title, very intriguing. But what I like about your book is it's not just a memoir of your time at Fox News and in media, but it's also a sort of overcoming adversity primer for people. Could you describe it?
Well, I grew up in the D.C. area. My parents still live in the house that I grew up in Silver Spring. And I was a bit of a mess when I was a kid. I dropped out of college twice. My GPA was 0.27, and I'm very proud of that. I started hanging and finishing sheetrock with my buddy's dad's drywall company, and I did hard labor for a couple years, and I worked as a doorman and in bars downtown in D.C., and I was just kind of floundering, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And so that's one of the chapters in the book is how I got my act together, how I went to Montgomery College in Rockville and took a careers class and figured out that journalism was the path for me because I had written for the school paper and did the morning announcements in 11th grade and was always loved to write, was a class clown, all that. But I never really thought about being a journalist until I sort of forced myself to figure out what I needed to do to pursue a career that wasn't going to break my back in 10 years. And so, I hope that my story, and that's not the only one in the book, about overcoming adversity and rising in the face of great challenge, I hope that can inspire people to do the same, because we're all capable of doing great things. And there are a lot of people who maybe aren't so happy in their current career or with the way their life is. But you know what? You can change. And all it takes is dedication and commitment and the right headspace.
It's very interesting to me how you described you bopped from this job to that job and you dropped out of college and so forth. And you went through these years of floundering before you finally settled on journalism because, just personally speaking, that was my past as well. Very interesting. What was it that finally led you to believe in journalism as your career path of choice?
Well, once the light bulb went off over my head, once I realized that, wow, this is perfect for me, because it really was where I was destined to be. It took me going through that whole process of not doing it, of being a bit lost and doing everything but that. And then once I saw the course catalog, once I saw the classes that I would be taking to earn a degree in journalism, I was like, of course, this is perfect for me. It just fit my personality, it fit my skill set. And once I started doing it, I realized that I could be really good at it. And I honed my skills in 10 years of local news, bouncing from job to job, leaving several because of my wife at the time. She got better jobs, so I would quit my job and move for her job and get another job. And I just kept sort of rising through the ranks until I eventually made my way to Fox News Channel. And I spent 24 years there. I had 8 contracts, and I did some amazing things and went to some amazing places. And the experiences I had primarily at Fox are what make up the pages of Chasing Catastrophe. It's just sort of a greatest hits album, but also a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff and stories I've never told on television that I can tell now in the pages of my book.
Were you always broadcast journalism? Always? Or were you print at any point, radio, anything?
I did some radio along the way, but yes, I was always a TV reporter. And I'm not sure I'd be a very good print reporter. I'd never written a book before, and it's a whole different ballgame. I know that. It's a different approach. And, you can write a news story. In my TV script for a minute and a half live shot might fill 2 pages of my reporter notebook. Writing an article for a newspaper might fill, 50 pages. And there was so much that I would read articles, of course, in the newspapers to help gather information for my live shots, but there's so much you can't say because you're so limited on time.
I like what you said about how you spent about 10 years in local news, because I notice a lot of journalists come out of college and they expect to have that national news presence without having to do the hard work of digging into local news first. How did spending so much time in local news help your career, help you become a better journalist on the national scale?
Well, I 100% agree with you. The best reporters are those who spent time in local markets, work their way up the ladder, because you have to cover the fires and the murders and the car wrecks and the city council meetings. You got to do all those things to get good at it and to get good at other things. I was standing there at the base of the towers on 9/11 when they fell to the ground, and if I hadn't had 10 years of local news experience teaching me how to handle crazy events, and this was beyond anything anyone had ever experienced. But because I had been in harm's way and had been in some wild and wacky situations up to that point, I was definitely a lot more prepared to deal with the trauma and the chaos and the stuff hitting the fan all around me than I would have been if I had just walked out of whatever university and grabbed a microphone and tried to be a reporter. You need the experience. The experience shapes you and makes you better at stuff. And like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I think I got pretty good at it over 10 years in local news. And then, when I got to the network level, now I got a producer. Now I have, an engineer, and I have, 2 crews, and I can do real reporting.
And local news gives you a sort of view of how government actually works, because, and it sort of links how even international policies wind their ways into the backyards of people in their various communities. Did you get that?
Yeah, I did, but I have to be honest, I never really liked covering politics. If I wanted to be the chief White House correspondent for Fox News, I probably could have been. I mean, I grew up in the D.C. area, and I obviously I knew the town well, but I didn't want to do politics. I wanted to do breaking news. I loved being the first out the door when things happen. I loved being a witness to history, and to me, history was not sitting on Capitol Hill in a hearing somewhere or a press conference. I wanted to be where the plane crashed, or where the war was being fought, or where the hurricane was hitting the coast, and that's what I did. I was an adrenaline junkie, and I wanted to be on the front lines, and I made it to the front lines many, many times.
So let's talk about some of the specifics in your book, Chasing Catastrophe. You were at the Twin Towers. How did that come about? Did you respond after the plane hit, or did you just happen to be in the area?
Well, I was in our offices in Midtown, Midtown Manhattan, on the morning of 9/11, and my pager, we still had pagers back then, my pager went off, and I called the assignment desk there, where are you? I'm like, I'm in my office, which, by the way, I wouldn't have been in my office. I had physical therapy because I had torn my ACL in May of 2001. I was still going 2 or 3 times a week for physical therapy for my knee, and that morning I went to Lenox Hill to get my PT, and the office was closed. This is the first time it ever happened, because they worked with the New Jersey Devils, and there was a spring training game, or not spring training, but they had an exhibition game that day. So the whole office was closed. They were all at the arena or their practice facility for a game, and I didn't know. So now I'm going to the office. I'm there early. I was there by 8:30. So when the plane hit, they called me. I knew right away. I mean, they said, we need you down there. So I went downstairs, jumped on a subway, and made my way downtown. And by the time I got to the towers, the second plane had hit, but I didn't know it. And I got up to the closest police line to the North Tower, and I couldn't go any further. And I had to talk my way past several of them with my press credentials. And I looked at a female police officer, and I said, why is the second tower on fire? And she said, well, that's where the second plane hit. And then I knew that we were under attack. And that was the beginning of the most insane and awful day of my life. But, we were my engineer, Pat Butler, had parked the satellite truck 4 blocks up Church Street from Ground Zero. And I found him, and he plugged in the camera and a microphone. We didn't even have a cameraman there yet. And I went out in the street, I grabbed the microphone, and I started to narrate the scene around me, and within 15 seconds, the first tower fell. And we had to run from the smoke cloud. And I'll tell you something, that the story that's in the book, Cheryl, the camera was still recording when we got in the truck. And the camera itself was under the truck, shooting what was now darkness, because we were enveloped in a cloud for 4 or 5 minutes. But the microphone was inside the truck with us, and you can hear me and Pat talking about what's going on, how in the dark we were, because the cell towers are on the roof of the building, so there's no cell service. And we're like, what's going on? There's a lot of cursing, and just this. I transcribed it because I had the original tape, and that's in the book for the first time ever. What we talked about and what transpired in those early minutes before we went back out and started covering the worst story of our lives.
Wow, that's history. That's U.S. history right there. That's amazing. Talk for a minute about how difficult it was for you to switch gears from the emotion that you would feel at some of these major events you would cover into the who, what, where, when, why of reporting. Was that a characteristic that was inherent in you, the ability to shift gears like that, or was that a learned behavior?
I think I learned that during my time in local news. I learned how to separate my emotions from the story I was covering, and I was never more tested than on 9/11, because I had been in New York for years at that point. That was my city. It was my home. I loved it here. I'm in New York now. I moved to California, but I'm back for this book tour. But in any event, I'm standing there on Church Street in Lower Manhattan, surrounded by chaos. We're under attack, and I have to be calm. I have to maintain composure and report on what's going on around me without losing my what. And I took all the strength I had to do it, but I did it. And I think that was learned behavior. I think it was just from years of covering breaking news and separating separating myself from the awful reality of what was staring me in the face, and just trying to be calm and report on the facts and stuff going on. And there were a lot of rumors flying that day too. Nobody knew what was happening, and so people were saying all kinds of stuff. And I was just trying not to repeat the rumors that I heard, and only stick with the stuff that we could confirm, or what witnesses were telling me that their experiences had been.
So how did you decompress after something like that? Did you go home and have a beer? Did you cry? Did you go for a run? How did you do that? And how, in other stories that were equally difficult to cover, maybe involving children or innocent civilians in war zones, how did you decompress?
Well, 9/11, first and foremost, I worked every day, 14, 16, 18 hours a day for 2 weeks. And the first day I had off, Sunday, I broke down at home on the couch, started bawling. And my girlfriend at the time comforted me, and I got it out of my system. And then I went back to work. But you remind me of when I came home from being embedded with Marines in Iraq in 2003, because that was the closest I've come to really understanding what our service members go through. We were in the desert for 8 or 9 weeks. I went without a shower for 35 days. I know, I smelled really bad.
Nice.
But we all did. And we were wearing these charcoal-lined camo suits. So, it wasn't until you took it off that you really got the whiff of how bad we were. But in any event, these guys are tested beyond belief. And what they go through is just can be so emotionally challenging. And when I came home from Iraq, and I'm not a service, I never served, but I was with the service members for many weeks. And when I came home, I was a different person. I was a wreck. I'd lost 18 pounds, and I had that faraway stare, and I just was like, you people have no idea what's going on. You don't know what it's really like out there. And you're complaining about your coffee isn't cold enough or hot enough.
Yes.
And you got to wait in line for whatever, or the AC is busted. Like, dude, you don't even, you don't know. Because I slept in the dirt. I didn't have a cold drink for 6 or 7 weeks. And so it took me a couple of months, I'd say, to wrap my head around what real life was, what the real life I'd left, and the real life I'd come home to, and to accept it. It was very, very challenging. And yeah, of course, I'd have drinks when I could. I didn't drink in the desert, but when I got home, I certainly did. And that could help. But emotionally, it can be really, really taxing. And not everyone's able to handle it. I did a 10 years later, 5 years later with some of the guys we served with, and there were a couple of them that had some real issues, and I could relate.
So was it when you went to war zones that you saw the worst of humanity, or is there some sort of story that took you by surprise where it just threw you for a loop? You didn't expect it was going to show such evil side of humanity, but it did. And conversely, I'd like to know the same about the good.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to share was that there's a chapter in my book about my experiences in Libya, and people don't often ask about it, but it was one of the most incredible journeys of my life. I went there twice for a couple weeks each trip, and went all the way from Cairo, drove across Egypt and to come into Libya, and then make our way down and around from Ashdabia to Benghazi to Misrata, and we were all over the place just trying to chase the rebels who were fighting Gaddafi's army. And watching these school teachers and accountants and shop owners, people with regular jobs, take up arms, up-armor their pickup trucks, learn how to fight, learn how to shoot, and then go off to war to defend their countries was one of the most inspirational things I've ever witnessed. And it happened across Libya, and it's the reason why Gaddafi was overthrown, is because the people had had enough, and the people rose up. And to watch that happen, I was on the ground talking to them, doing stories about them. It was remarkable. And I just absolutely loved being there. but by the same token, we woke up one morning to the sounds of bombs and look out the window, and there are mushroom clouds all surrounding our hotel, and there are tanks rolling into Benghazi, Gaddafi's tanks, and it's like, pack your stuff, get the hell out of there as fast as you can because, they're about to open fire, and did open fire, but we all know how that worked out. You see some pretty awful things, but you also see some amazing things, and I loved my job. I loved being on the front lines. I loved being a witness to history, and I'm so glad I could tell so many of these stories and include some anecdotes about stuff that people would never know about or never see because it was happening behind the scenes.
But now you've left that career behind, and I know our time is tight. I do have another question or two. Do you have time, or do you have to hang up?
Of course. I'm good.
So you left that behind, and you've moved on to a new chapter in life. Do you miss it? And also, when you look at the media today, what are your reflections on media coverage?
Well, I don't miss being called and asked to travel on a moment's notice. I did that for a very long time, for decades, and it takes a toll, and especially takes a toll on your family and your personal relationships. And I got married on 10/10/2020 to my amazing wife, Kelly, and I didn't want to leave her. I didn't want to be called out on another story where I had to be gone for a day or a week or a month. And I had done it for too long. I just didn't want to do that anymore. So the new chapter is Kelly and I are doing podcasts together. We do a daily show called The Daily Smash on YouTube on our Rick and Kelly Show YouTube channel, and we do a show on Patreon.com, which is subscription-based. We do a once-weekly show called The Rick and Kelly Show, and it's a complete departure from what I did before. And some people are like, God, I remember when you covered wars. Now you're talking about housewives, because my wife Kelly was Kelly Duff in The Real Housewives of Orange County. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's fun, and it's a departure, yeah, but I'm enjoying myself. I love doing it.
Good for you.
I mean, could I do news again? Yeah, and I would. I don't want to get rained on anymore. I'll be an anchorman, and I have 35 years of journalism experience. I don't have to talk about gossip or housewives or any of the stuff that we're doing now on our podcast. I can go back to real news, and I will most likely at some point. But right now, I'm loving what we're doing. It's a lot of fun. We're actually making money at it, not as much as I'd like, but we're doing well. And I don't have to travel. When we do travel, I do our show from the road. We'll do podcasts from our hotel room or our friend's house where we're staying, or from a restaurant or an airport terminal. We can do it from anywhere and just talk to the camera and share our experiences. And it's liberating to be able to do that stuff. It's liberating to be able to share my feelings and not be limited by the rules of journalism. Not that I regret any of that. It was awesome, and I feel like I had a terrific opportunity. But now it's just it's something a little different.
And your views on media today? Do you have any reflections?
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed a lot of times.
Yeah.
I'm especially disappointed about the stories that you're not allowed to cover.
Yep.
About all the silencing that's been going on, all the censorship of real stories that 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago would have been on the front page and would have been pursued by everyone. Now all of a sudden you can't touch it. But it's happening right in front of your faces.
Yeah.
Nobody's allowed to talk about it or say anything. I've never seen anything like it. And there's a lot of stuff that's ignored. There's a lot of stuff that's buried. There's a lot of partisanship that it's so obvious and frustrating. And again, I'm glad I don't cover politics. And we do talk about it on our podcast, but it's disappointing. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's kind of an understatement from somebody who sees similarly every day. So just to wrap with this last question, I asked you a lot of specifics regarding Chasing Catastrophe, your new book, and also just about your experiences in media. But is there anything about your book in particular that you would like to touch on before we hang up here?
Well, there's some stories that have never been told before that I think people will really appreciate and in some cases get a big kick out of. One of them involves General Russell Honore during Hurricane Katrina we had the chance to shadow him for a day, follow him around as he was doing his rounds, and there was a incident that he made us swear not to talk about, would bring us along for that particular part of the ride. And so we didn't talk about it, we didn't shoot it on camera, but I was there and I witnessed it, and I felt like the statute of limitations is up. So that's the book.
Nice.
There's a story about the Minneapolis bridge collapse that's never been told before. That's in my book. That's shocking, and I'm, waiting for to hear. I mean, this book officially comes out on Tuesday the 24th, and I'm waiting to hear more on the fallout from that. I'm proud of it because I'm proud of the work I've done, but also I think it can help people who might be at a crossroads in life, who might need some inspiration or a little kick in the butt, to get going on something. That's what I needed, and it's what I did, and I was able to overcome adversity, and I think maybe this will help some other people do the same.
Yeah, well, you just convinced me to pick up a copy of your book. It sounds fascinating. Chasing Catastrophe, my 35 years covering wars, hurricanes, terror attacks, and other breaking news. Rick Leventhal, thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Seriously, this does sound like a great book, doesn't it? Anything that deals with how to overcome struggles, how to overcome adversity, enlightening, illuminating, inspiring, motivational stories, real life stories of how people overcome issues in their lives, especially at this time in American history where every day, if you pay attention to the news, every day is a new struggle. Every day is a new problem to overcome. I want to thank you for listening. I want to remind you, if you like Bold and Blunt, you can subscribe to Bold and Blunt through edify.app, the online platform for your faith-based podcasts. But of course, you can subscribe to Bold and Blunt at washingtontimes.com, or guess what? Wherever podcasts are offered. Tune in next time. And in the meanwhile, don't forget, stay blunt, stay bold.